Hi, so I'm going to be doing my presentation over the differences and similarities between Hinduism and Buddhism. So, an overview between the two, there are two distinct religions. They share similar qualities in a sense of afterlife. Unlike Western religions, they don't believe in sin. When a person commits a sin, forgiveness is always available. East religions believe in karma, which is a person's conduct in life. Buddhists and Hindus have the same goal in reaching enlightenment. Of course, there are steps and duties to obtain that. Hindus have a caste system, whereas Buddhists have the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. Simply doing good to others and yourself is essential. The founders of these religions come from different backgrounds. Siddhartha Gautama is the first Buddha who founded Buddhism. In Hinduism, there is no founder except for the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being is known as the Brahman, which has no form or gender. Buddhists don't believe Buddha as God, whereas Hindus believe in many gods. So towards the end of my presentation, I'll explain why Buddha isn't considered a god. So throughout this whole presentation, I will go more in depth between these two religions. So starting with the history of Hinduism, I will get to Hinduism first, and then I will talk about Buddhism after. So I quote, Hinduism is the world's oldest religion, according to many scholars, with roots and customs dating back more than 4,000 years. It is also the third largest religion in the world. The development of Hinduism goes back to the Aryan Indo-European tribe. This tribe invaded North India and Central Asia to attack civilians there. Aryans believed in many gods, while civilians believed in sanctity for fertility. So eventually, the civilians also believed in many gods. Because of this invasion, they were, in some sense, forced to be Hinduism. So there is no specific founder. Rather, there is a supreme being called the Brahman. Now, the Brahman includes the universe, nature, and even people that are considered a Brahman. Hinduism is a belief in the Brahman as well as many gods. Hindus choose their gods to worship based on their values and customs. So whatever they feel, whatever they believe as, making money as far as like financial beings or like health and wellness, there is a god for each of those things. And whatever they value most, they will worship that specific god or gods. So the Vedas are the oldest scriptures in Hinduism. They are used for reciting, hymns, and prayer. The text goes back thousands of years, and it is still used in modern-day Hinduism. So on the bottom right hand, there's a picture of all the gods from the right to the left, and in the very middle is the Brahman. He is the manifest of all the gods all together as one. So going into the caste system, the word karma means action. Is by doing. So by doing good, you will be rewarded in your future lives, but by doing bad, you will suffer the consequences. Simply, your karma will determine what realm you'll be reborn in. Reincarnation is one of the main beliefs in Hinduism. This cycle is known as samsara. I quote, a continuous cycle in which the soul is reborn over and over again according to the law of action and reaction. The caste system classifies social and life status. A hierarchy that begins with elite at the top and untouchables at the bottom. So in this pyramid, it breaks down from the top to the bottom, the top being the Brahmins. They are the priests, people who teach Hinduism and the religion itself to other people. They are the leaders of Hinduism. The Kshatriyas, who are the warriors, which are under the Brahmins. Under the warriors are the Vaishyas, which are the merchants and landowners. And so these top three are considered twice-born groups. Under the Vaishyas are the Shudras. They are the servants. They are subordinate for the top three of the twice-born groups. And at the very bottom, which in some caste systems aren't even considered in the system itself, are the untouchables. They are out of the caste system and they are pretty much the subordinates on whoever is above them. So as far as becoming an untouchable, they are believed to have, maybe they had bad karma, maybe they didn't, live a good life in their past lives, so now they are considered an untouchable for that specific reason. But as for Hindus, if they are a untouchable, it's very unfortunate for them because they are treated differently. They are treated poorly, versus someone who is a warrior or a priest or someone who is above them. So going into moksha, moksha means liberation from samsara. Once moksha has been achieved, you are free from rebirth. You are no longer suffering and are free from all life's attachments. The four goals for a Hindu is kama, which are desires. Desires are like life's attachments, materials, anything that you are very close to or you absolutely need, like for example, a laptop or a cell phone. Those are like desires. Those are life's attachments that one of the first goals you have to do is detach from all those things. Artha is the next one, which is abundance, which is basically your success in life, all these things that you accomplished in life. Dharma is animate and inanimate objects. It could be, for example, an inanimate object could be a rock. A rock is a rock, but no matter what it is, it could be living or non-living. Everything in this world, in this universe, are considered dharmas. And finally, moksha, which is liberation. And I quote, "The ultimate goal of any Hindu's life, but is not meant to be pursued until all the other goals have been achieved." Some of the ways to obtain moksha is by following the first three goals again: kama, which is desires; artha, abundance; and dharma, which is animate and inanimate objects; then moksha. This also includes having good behavior and detaching oneself from all attachments. So the many gods, since Hinduism is a polytheistic religion, the first three of the many gods is the first and supreme being, the first and foremost is the Brahman. The Brahman isn't classified as a male or female. It is simply the creator of everything that exists. The supreme being also manifests all Hindu gods as one, as I said before. Vishnu, the second, is the preserver. Both him and his goddess Lakshmi work towards providing for the worlds. He is ideal for Hindus that want to live an ordinary life, as well as being spiritual, being involved in Hinduism. Shiva is the destroyer. He isn't a negative deity in this sense. He isn't someone who just magically destroys almost everything that comes his way. And his purpose of destroys anything that is evil, that doesn't serve a good purpose. So Hindus who value inner transformation is ideal of Shiva. So anyone that wants to basically be on a very high spiritual level to change themselves, both physically, mentally, everything, and you want to cleanse yourself by, cleansing all these bad things that you may have done or have, Shiva is probably the god to worship to become close to. Now, going into Buddhism, so the history of Buddhism, Siddhartha Gautama is the founder of Buddhism. He is no god, however, he is the first Buddha. The Buddha was born, but his mother died a week later. He was prophesied to become something much greater. Obviously, he was prophesied to become the Buddha. His father was raised till his arranged marriage. His father kept him away from society and all life sufferings. It was until one day Siddhartha witnessed suffering. After marriage and having his first son, he left his child and wife. He went on to discover the four sides. These four sides are an old man, a sick man, a dead man, and the holy man. He later wanted to find enlightenment himself. So through these four sides, he had to witness all these sufferings. He went with his charioteer on a horse to discover these four sites. Of course, he was very much in shock that he had to see those things. His charioteer had to explain, well, everyone will go through that. Everyone will get old. Everyone will become sick. Everyone will die. But then also with the holy man, with this man, he was, I guess, in a sense, also like enlightened. So regardless of what was happening around him, he was still meditating. His concentration was fully focused on himself and basically removing himself from all life's attachments. So the Buddha went forth and began his journey. During his journey, he deprived himself of his physical needs, which were our physical needs are simply like water, food, sex, just everything that we need as a human being. It was until he was close to starving to death. He was approached by a young woman who gave him milk rice. His followers, his ascetics, however, abandoned him. So as soon as he had 5 ascetics following him, for 6 years, he deprived himself of water, food, everything. He was starving to death. As soon as his followers saw that he was eating, they wanted nothing to do with him, so they just left him. So all alone, he sat under a Bodhi tree and began to meditate. But this was until a Devamara then tried to distract him. He was a person of temptation. After defeating Mara, he had awakened. He continued to meditate for 3 nights, followed by a 7-week period. So the first thing he wanted to do was establish his first Sangha. So his first Sangha considered his followers that previously abandoned him, but now they became the first Sangha. So Siddhartha would teach his ascetics and then continue his teachings for future monks and nuns. So then once he reached his final nirvana, this was when he passed away. This was when a blacksmith had given him spoiled, rotten, it wasn't good. It wasn't processed, but basically the Buddha had died of food poisoning. And he lived a long life. He passed away at the age of 80. But now, since his first Sangha has been established and so forth, and even in modern day time, this Sangha still exists. And so for this time being, Buddhism is still alive till this day. So Buddhism has no caste system. And I quote, "The Buddha introduced the idea of placing a higher value on morality and the equality of people instead of on which family or caste a person is born into. In other words, people are not limited to status. Buddhists believe that it wouldn't be right to treat someone poorly just because they are untouchable. Buddhism is all about respect and having compassion for one another. Buddhist or non-Buddhist, you have total control of yourself. The biggest difference with Buddhism and Hinduism is obviously they don't have a caste system. However, Buddhism still believes in reincarnation. Reincarnation still exists for Buddhism. Except depending on your karma, for Buddhism, it depends on your conduct. And so after you die, you're reborn into, there are 6 realms. So with Hinduism, you're born into a caste system versus Buddhism, there are 6 realms that you are reborn into. So for Buddhism, again, they believe that the caste system shouldn't even be established, that everyone is all equal, no matter if they're poor, no matter if they're rich, the color of their skin, where they came from, whose parents they came from, it doesn't matter as long as you treat everyone with respect. Everyone is all human. So going into enlightenment and nirvana, enlightenment means awaken. To be enlightened is a very complex process, but it's not impossible entirely. It's just a process where it's going to take not overnight, but it'll take decades for you to advance yourself to become enlightened. So only very few has reached the state of awakening. First and foremost, you must fully engage yourself to Buddhism. You must commit yourself, dedicate yourself, just put your all into Buddhism. Now, not necessarily, put your all into Buddha, because again, Buddha is not a god, but simply like simple things like go to the temple, study the dharmas, meditate often, and be part of a monastery. Um, a lot of monks and nuns who commit themselves to Buddhism want to have want to become closer to the religion itself and also Buddha. Again, not necessarily worshiping Buddha, but becoming close to breaking that cycle so that they can be free. So, and also get a basic solid understanding, such as the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, there are Four Noble Truths, and then the fourth Noble Truth goes into the first Noble Eightfold Path, the first path. So, reaching nirvana, however, it doesn't happen overnight. It's just something that you can't just magically just be like, okay, I'm enlightened. Okay, now I'm in nirvana. There's a bunch of levels. There are at least like over 30, 40 levels of trance that you have to go through. So it's not something that can just be like, okay, I'm enlightened. No, it's more like it's a process. It's a very complex process, like I said before. So nirvana, which is the top thing that you can ever like witness as a person. So like just like Buddha, after he had died, after he had passed away, that's when he finally reached that nirvana. That's when he finally broke that cycle of suffering. He no longer has to suffer. He no longer has to be reborn again. He is finally at the top of the world. He is beyond the universe, beyond of what we can think of, basically. So nirvana is a state of liberation. So it is similar to moksha. So nirvana and moksha are pretty much the same thing, the state of liberation, except moksha is for Hinduism, nirvana is for Buddhism. So you are free from rebirth, samsara, and forever living in peace. All life's limitations become unlimited. So you are free, you're no longer bound to any attachments. The soul detaches from the body. So after you die, your soul is no longer part of your body. And this is as a means of detaching from the world. You're no longer here, you're no longer a part of some type of materialistic human body. You're one. As soon as you go into nirvana, you're finally free from everything. So Buddha is no god. Unlike Hinduism, Buddha is not worshipped as a god. Siddhartha never claimed to be a god. And I quote, he taught about the mind, about life in the here and now. Buddhists recognize that Buddha is the founder, but he is not a supreme being. So like with Hinduism, they have a supreme being. They have all these gods they worship. But the only similarity, for example, although there are other male and female Buddhas, Buddhists choose who they feel closest to. This is somewhat similar to Hinduism because they choose based on their values. So again, Buddha is not a god, but there are other Buddhas that that Buddhists can become close to, but not necessarily that they are gods. So in conclusion, Buddhism and Hinduism are somewhat alike but different in many ways. They both believe in reincarnation, yet karma doesn't determine a Buddhist. Hindus look up to a supreme being and many gods. Buddhists, on the other hand, don't have a specific god to worship to. Buddhism is all about free will and taking control. This teaches Buddhists to be wholesome and appreciate life. Hinduism is having good karma, so you can be born into a higher caste. The higher the caste, the closer to moksha. These religions come from India and soon were expanded to many other countries. One thing they are also similar is to break the cycle of suffering, reaching the state of perfection and free from all evil. in my bibliography.